Yo, what's poppin'? It's the Hyphenate, and today we're gonna be checking out this pretty dope new plugin made by Baby Audio. It's called Tekno. It's a drum synthesizer, so it doesn't use any samples. It has a bunch of different engines. It's pretty much a drum machine with various kits, but each sound or voice has its own engine, so you can really manipulate the sounds and create your own drum sounds. Now, personally, I think they actually made a mistake calling this Tekno. I think that was a bad move. They should rename this plugin because it's not just for techno music. Yes, it'll definitely be great for EDM, but you can also use it on pop, hip hop, other genres. I've been making a lot of cinematic beats, and I actually feel like this is gonna go really well with those. All right, enough talking, let's get straight to it. So here's the plugin. You can see all the individual sounds or voices for this digital drum machine, starting off at C1. And the way it's set up here, if you're using a MIDI keyboard, it's gonna go up just by note from left to right, top to bottom, just as if you were reading a book. And so on a MIDI keyboard, you're gonna always go from C1 and end at F2. If you've used any Baby Audio plugins, the navigation is very similar, though the UI and layout is definitely unique to this plugin. But here at the top, you have your drop-down menu for all the built-in presets. And eventually, I'm sure they'll add more packs here that you can purchase. And then you have user presets here in case you decide to save any. A lot of them are named more for the type of vibe or genre they fit into. So you can see some say hip-hop, dubstep, R&B, though a lot of them just have names that don't really fit a genre. They're just named whatever they decided. But really, ultimately, you can actually use a lot of these in different genres, especially if you manipulate the sounds. What I want to do real quick, I'm just going to kind of go randomly through some of these kits just so you can hear the differences. And then we'll go over the engines and I can show you how you can actually change every single sound. I have a 2-bar drum loop here. I'm going to go ahead and just play that on repeat while I play different presets. As I play them, you'll see the different sounds light up and the little visualizer here on the right. Pretty damn interesting. Again, no samples. Now here on the right of every single preset, you can actually tag them with different colors. I'm just gonna go ahead and click on here on the club beat. Not only does every preset have its own sounds, but every one of these sounds or voices can be selected, and they each have their own settings and parameters you can adjust. So if you look down here, you'll see different options change. If I go from a kick to, let's say, a tom, you have different options here. So on each one, you'll have here on the synthesize section, certain options. Then you have an effects section. When you have a sound selected, next to the effects, you have this section here that has the name of the sound that's selected. Right now we have Hat B. Not only are you getting unique sounds for every one of these presets, but if you wanted to change the Hat B from a different kit, or preset, in this section down here, whatever sound you have selected, you can just click this little hamburger menu button, and now you can replace that for, in our case, the Hat B from any other kit. So these sounds are not locked into just whatever preset you've selected. If you make any adjustments to an individual sound or voice, let's say I change the brightness, the cutoff, I'll get more in depth in a bit. Tilt, ring, exciter, and I like this sound and I want to save it, here in the same section where you can change the sound, you could also save, as you see here on the right, it pops up, save voice preset, and then you just name it and click the little checkbox. And so now an individual sound that you've manipulated or even created, however you want to look at it, you can utilize on a different kit or preset. Now, one of the really dope things that I like about this plugin is that whatever sound you're working with, you can literally click and drag it into an audio track. So rather than it just being played as MIDI, it essentially renders out as a WAV file so that you can work with it from there. For example, let's go to this kick. I can click and drag here, or here from that same section where we can save a preset. There's this little move icon. You can click and drag from that as well. So you can click and drag from the actual hexagon of the sound, or from this little move icon. I'm gonna grab it from the hexagon, and you see in Cubase, even though I don't have an audio track selected, if I drag it to an empty area, it'll actually create an audio track for me. I'm gonna let go, and now it's gonna ask me if I wanna change the sample rate. Now the sample rate that's native from this plugin is 48 kilohertz. I personally tend to make music in 44.1 kilohertz, so this project is in 44.1. And so it's gonna notify me in Cubase that this sound is gonna be converted to my project sample rate. I'm gonna press OK, and there we go. Now if I wanted to, I can work with the sounds as audio files. This is something that I absolutely love, especially because this plugin is actually built in a way that old analog drum machines were made, where every time you'd hit the sound, it varies a little bit. It doesn't maintain the exact same sound. So if we create a loop played as MIDI, the plugin itself is gonna always have some small variation to the sound. So if we were to export, let's say a 4-bar loop, and we looked at all the kicks, the waveforms would vary slightly. And again, that was built into this plugin so that it can mimic some of that older analog drum machine gear. Personally, I'm not really a fan of that because I don't like when a velocity or a volume change occurs in most tracks. So because of that, I actually like being able to drag out some of these sounds so I can make sure that a kick or a snare doesn't vary whatsoever. But if you like that more human-like or kind of classic sound variation, you can just work with this as MIDI. Now here in the same section that we've been talking about, whenever you have a sound selected, you can also solo or mute that sound. You also have a panner here on the left, double click to reset to 0. You also have an individual volume knob here just for that sound. Double click to go to 0, adjust that as you like. Now a lot of people will have kicks, snares, hi-hats on different tracks so that you can mix individually and then put them together in a drums bus. That's something that I like to do. I don't like having all my sounds in one MIDI recording. But if you are someone that does like to do that, for example here, I do have a MIDI recording with all these different sounds. If you didn't want to separate the different sounds into different tracks, but you don't want some of the sounds clashing, for example, a kick with a tom that hits on the same spot, or kicks and snares, they added a ducker directly on here, which is actually awesome. So you can increase the amount of the ducking to 100%, 0%. Underneath this knob here, there's a drop-down menu. You can choose as many sounds as you want so that you can make more room for your sounds. Here on the right, you do have a master section. This affects all the tracks that are on this same MIDI recording. Again, if you were to use multiple tracks, so I'm gonna go ahead and play this loop again, just to show you the differences here. You have a cutoff, so you can filter the low or the high. You can humanize, it'll add a little variety to the overall playback. A limiter, which you can move around if you wanna make these sounds more punchy. A clipper, and an overall level. So I'm gonna go ahead and press play and then kind of just mess with these a little bit. Now here in the same section, we also have these buttons. We have mix. So here you can adjust the individual levels of every sound. You also have a reverb here. Now this reverb is pretty much on all tracks, though if we get out of the mixer and click on a sound, they pretty much all have a reverb option. So the reverb button from the master is the reverb send that goes to all these sounds. But then every sound has the ability to increase or decrease the amount of reverb that's affecting that sound. Again, treat it as a send. So whatever adjustments you make here to the reverb is going to affect the reverb on every sound. Same thing with the limiter, human, and other, where you have velocity, clip ceiling, filter, and ducker. Overall, I think this is really well packaged, well thought out, easy to use. Honestly, in 10-15 minutes from the first time opening this up, you'll really understand how this works. I like that they don't complicate their layout. All right, let me get a little bit more into the synthesize here. All right, let's get a little bit more detailed now on things. Let's also change the kit. The quality of the sound is great. Here on the top left corner, we have a settings option. Here you can have this tooltips on, so when you hover over things, it gives you a little tip on how they work. Routing is actually really dope. If you click on that, you can actually send all these sounds instead of going to the master track by default. you can actually create buses instantly here to separate all your sounds into different buses. So rather than doing multiple instances of the Tekno plugin on various tracks, running, let's say, 10 different Tekno plugins, one for the kicks, one for the snares, hi-hats, etc., what you could actually do is go into this routing option, send all the sounds to their own individual bus, so they're all operating off of one instance of this plugin. And then you can take all those individual buses, put them into a drums bus. This will actually lower the amount of CPU usage because you're not using that many instances of Tekno. Even though Tekno doesn't use a lot of CPU, this is another intuitive way to minimize processing on your computer. I love this. Next, we have export with effects. Earlier, I showed you about dragging a sound into your DAW as a WAV file. Having export with effects selected, which right now it is, you can see when they're selected because they have a circle around the circle and it's brighter. So if we have a reverb, our sub, exciter, saturation, etc., when we drag and drop, it'll export with the effects. If you have that deselected, none of these effects will be baked in to that drag and drop audio file. Next, we have velocity. With that off, no matter how hard or soft you actually press the key on your controller, your velocity will be constant. With it on, it'll depend on how hard you press the keys. Now, swing is great if you want a little bit more natural bounce or rhythm, so it's not perfectly quantized, which applies if you are on a MIDI track. So let's go ahead and turn on the swing. You can click and drag where the number's at, and you can go from 100% down to 0. Let's go to 50%, and the rhythm, we can keep it at 1/16. Now we'll play the MIDI track. All right, Baby Audio, if you're watching that, there's this bug right now that keeps happening with me having swing on. It's crashed my computer several times already. That annoying sound you just heard that just keeps adding and adding. It's like this nonstop feedback loop. It just gets glitched and stuck. I have to close it, reopen it. The moment I press play, it's back to the same issue. If I turn off swing, the problem's gone. I've seen a bunch of people use swing on their videos, no issues. So I don't know if it's a Cubase thing. I don't know if it's maybe a bug on mine, but everything else works fine. So Baby Audio, please drop an update to kind of address this issue. All right, so now let's really get into what makes this plugin what it is, a drum synthesizer. So each sound has this synthesize section here on the bottom left. This is really where you get to dial in the type of sound you want. Every different type of sound has different parameters that you can change. Let's go ahead and start with kicks. You'll have pitch, or you get the option to change from pitch to frequency. So right now we're at 49 kilohertz. If we switch back to pitch, it tells you that we're on G1. This is great, especially if you want to have your kick tuned to the key of your track. You have the length. Body. Click. Drive. Let's go into snares. You can do the same thing with pitch or frequency. But then you also have a repitch with the snares. Body. Sizzle. Spark. Let's go to toms. Now every preset also has tonal. Now with all the sounds, not only can you drop them in as a waveform, but you could also drop it to a sampler, map it to the right note, and then you can actually use it to play a melody or some type of sound that's different than just drums. Now, like we talked about earlier, the effects, they all have effects, though some of them are a little different. So for kicks, sub, exciter, tilt, saturation, reverb. As you can see, cowbell has ring, tilt, shape, saturation, reverb. Conga, exciter, drive, saturation, compressor, reverb. So let's go ahead and change the sound of this snare. If you're having trouble coming up with inspiration to synthesize your own sounds, every single sound has this little symbol here with 5 dots. Essentially, it's a die. If you click on that, it'll randomize all the settings of that sound. So every time you click the random button, you'll get a different sound for that same voice. So you can see every time I click the randomize button, it's changing the synthesize and effects sections. You can do that per sound. So you can see really how different each sound can be and give you a new bass to work with. Aside from doing that individually to every sound, you can also do it here to the entire kit, so everything changes. So there you guys have it. That's Tekno, made by Baby Audio. Personally, I think it's really dope. I do think it needs a sequencer. It needs to be able to program drum patterns here natively. With this price point being at $125 US, it definitely needs to have that. Also, I think they should have a lock button on every single sound so that if you want to randomize the entire kit or even change the kit to a different preset, the locked sounds stay where they're at in case there's a hi-hat, a snare, whatever it is that you already dialed in that you really like, and you just want to randomize or change the other sounds. There should be a lock button for sure on every single sound. Other than that, I think this is a really solid plugin, though it is a little expensive. Like I said, $125 US at the regular price. Right now, there is an intro price because it's new. And if you are a mailing list subscriber, you get an extra 10% off, which is emailed to you. So I took advantage of that. So it came out to 80 bucks, I believe it was for me, which I still think is pretty high for this plugin. But I really wanted something unique, different, especially for my cinematic epic beats that I've been making a lot lately. And the moment I got it, I got this several days ago. I've been messing with it so I can really get the hang of it. I made a drum pattern that I really liked that kind of had an EDM vibe, and it instantly inspired me to make a track it's a banger. I actually posted a little clip on my shorts as well as on my Instagram. So if you want to go check it out, check it out. That song is actually probably going to come out at the end of this month because I got pretty hyped using this. It's got a lot to work with, a lot of variety, and I think it offers a lot of inspiration to beat making. If you're interested in checking out my music, just search the Hyphenate on all music platforms. Also on this channel, I have a playlist dedicated to more plugin reviews and tutorials, so make sure to check that out as well. Please drop a like on this video, comment below if you have any questions, or just let me know. Are you gonna get this plugin? Does it interest you? And also, please subscribe. I got a lot more videos coming soon. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.